Listen, do you hear that? That faint frequency crackling through the void? That is the sound of our entire civilization about to learn why you should never, and I mean never, poke a sleeping predator with a stick. Especially when that predator happens to be an entire species that just invented faster than light travel. Oh, and they are angry. My name is Krell, and I am what you might call a survivor. More accurately, I am a Vorthian observer who was stationed on humanity's doorstep when absolutely everything went sideways. And let me tell you, watching the moment an entire galactic council realized they had made a catastrophic mistake, that is something even my 4 optical nerves could barely process. It all started about 72 rotations ago, when the council decided that humanity needed a little lesson in galactic etiquette. You see, humans had recently broken through their atmospheric boundaries and were starting to send their primitive probes in all directions. The council saw this as an insult. A civilization so young, so fragile, so utterly unremarkable, daring to announce itself to the universe. It was, in their collective judgment, unacceptable. So they sent an ultimatum, a simple message transmitted to every human receiver. Surrender your technology, accept dominion, or face elimination. The humans, in their infinite wisdom and stubborn defiance, did what I can only describe as the most hilarious and terrifying thing simultaneously. They said no. But it was not just the word itself. Oh no, it was how they said it. Sarah Venn, the then president of something called the United Earth Government, stood before every camera, every feed, every broadcast system her species possessed, and she smiled, actually smiled. Her biological face contorted into this expression of amusement, mixed with something far more dangerous, and then she spoke. Every human on their planet heard it. Every word carried through their communication networks and was sent back through space to us, to them, to everyone with ears capable of receiving it. You want our technology? Come and take it. We have 8 billion people on this rock, and every single one of us would rather burn this world down than bend our knees to tyrants hiding behind a computer screen. So here is what you get. Get bent. The translation algorithms actually had difficulty processing that last part, not because of linguistic barriers, but because the human delegation had deliberately encoded profanity into the signal for maximum emotional impact. Absolutely savage. The council convened. I watched from my observation station, my tentacles literally quivering with anxiety. The Zephelian diplomat Tosk began demanding immediate military response. The Aurellian hierarchy wanted containment. The Asynthean collective suggested psychological warfare. Meanwhile, humanity was preparing for war in ways the galaxy had never seen before. This is where things get interesting, my friend. You see, the Council had made a critical error in their calculations. They had observed humanity for approximately 400 cycles. They had studied their history, their psychology, their primitive warfare capabilities. What they had failed to understand was that humans do not fight like other species. They do not calculate efficiency and retreat when odds overwhelm them. They do not surrender peacefully when threatened. Humans fight with something far more dangerous than weapons. They fight with purpose. Within hours of Sarah Venn's broadcast, something extraordinary happened on Earth. Political divisions that had plagued humanity for centuries suddenly evaporated. Humans from every nation, every ideology, every background gathered together. Factory workers began producing weapons. Scientists accelerated research programs. Military strategists who had been rivals became colleagues. Even children offered their service without hesitation. The species was operating as one organism, and that organism was absolutely furious. But the Council did not anticipate this. They thought humans would scramble. They thought humans would beg for mercy. Instead, humans did something far more horrifying from a strategic perspective. They built, and they built with a speed that defied conventional military logic. Commander Garrett Fross led the defense initiative with the calculation of a chess master and the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. He mobilized Earth's manufacturing capabilities in ways that the military establishment had theorized about but never actually attempted. Every factory, every facility, every possible production center was redirected toward one goal: survival through overwhelming firepower. The human weapons designers, led by the brilliant and eternally sarcastic Dr. Keiko Matsuda, worked consecutively without sleep. She would laugh during briefings, actually laugh, even as she discussed theoretical ways to make energy weapons more efficient. Her team produced designs that seemed to prioritize speed of construction over perfection. The council analysts noted this and thought it indicated desperation. They were wrong. It indicated strategy. You see, humans understood something the council did not. The Vorthians, like myself, we had observed Earth's military history. Humans had fought wars against each other across their entire recorded history. They had experimented with every weapon type imaginable. They had made catastrophic mistakes, learned from them and improved. Their entire species was essentially hardened through self-inflicted combat scenarios. In a twisted way, humanity had been training for this moment for millennia. 3 weeks after the ultimatum, the first Vorthian patrol ship detected something troubling in Earth's orbital space: debris. Hull, but not debris from destroyed human vessels. Debris from abandoned human vessels, hundreds of them, all positioned in a mathematical pattern, all broadcasting the same message on repeat: "We are here, come and get us." The patrol commander, a particularly aggressive Vorthian named Shreth, decided to investigate. His scan revealed that the vessels were automated. Empty, useless.
A trap.
A provocation? He reported to the fleet commander that humanity was either insane or suicidally stupid, possibly both. But Shreth made a calculation error. He assumed that the abandoned vessels were the threat. He did not account for what was beneath them. Beneath the planet's orbital space, hidden in the lower atmosphere, camouflaged by technologies that human ingenuity had managed to cobble together, using salvaged alien equipment and innovative repurposing, sat something that made even my hardened alien consciousness shudder. Thousands of ground-based defense platforms, thousands of vessels, thousands of weapons that the Council had somehow failed to detect during their surveillance operations. Humanity had been waiting, building, preparing, and when Shreth's patrol ship descended to investigate the abandoned vessels, it encountered something no Vorthian had experienced in recorded history: defeat. The patrol ship exploded in 3 simultaneous explosions. Not 1, 3. This indicated that humanity was using synchronized strikes, coordinated attacks, advanced tactical thinking. The message was clear: do not underestimate us. Within hours, the Council received Shreth's final transmission, a static-filled recording of his voice, surprisingly calm for someone experiencing catastrophic system failure. The humans, they are not what we calculated. They are different, they are willing, they are... The transmission cut to silence. And then silence became something far worse than noise. Earth went quiet. No broadcasts, no signals, no communication. The humans had finished their preparations. They had armed their world. They had gathered their forces. And now they waited, weapons hot, fingers on triggers, ready for the galaxy to make its next move. The Council, for the first time in what my historical records indicated was approximately 3,000 cycles, felt something they had not anticipated. Fear. The response came faster than anyone expected. The Council, desperate to reassert dominance, committed the one tactical error that would define this entire conflict. They sent not a negotiating vessel. They sent a fleet, 743 warships, each one bristling with weapons technology that had conquered countless civilizations across 15,000 cycles of warfare. They were confident. They were organized. They were absolutely catastrophically wrong. Admiral Torrex of the Aurellian Dominion commanded the assault force with the precision of a being who had never experienced failure. His tactical computers had run the scenarios millions of times. Humanity, though brave and clever, was technologically inferior by an estimated factor of 800 to 1. The mathematical certainty of victory was absolute, or at least, that is what the data suggested. Data, however, has a frustrating habit of being incomplete when you are observing an opponent you have fundamentally misunderstood. Commander Garrett Fross sat in Earth's Central Command Center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Appalachian Mountains, watching the radar screens with the calm demeanor of someone who had rehearsed this moment for weeks.
Beside him stood Dr.
Keiko Matsuda, who was drinking something called coffee, with absolutely zero concern for the fact that approximately 700 enemy vessels were approaching at high velocity. She glanced at Garrett, and raised one eyebrow in that expression humans use when they are about to say something devastatingly sarcastic. "So," Keiko said, her voice steady as a fusion reactor, "I am guessing the Council did not get the memo about what happens when you bring a math problem to a negotiation, and the other side brought a calculator and several decades of military innovation." Garrett actually laughed, all tuned in genuine laughter. His team stared at him like he had experienced a psychological break, but Garrett understood something fundamental about human nature. Fear and laughter occupied the same space in the human brain. Right now, his soldiers needed to know that their commander believed in victory, so he laughed. "Send the signal," Garrett commanded. "All stations, combat readiness. Let them come." What happened next would be discussed in military academies across dozens of civilizations for thousands of cycles to come. Humanity did not meet the Aurellian fleet in the conventional sense. They did not maneuver capital ships into broadside positions. They did not attempt to match the superior technology with direct confrontation. Instead, they did something that violated every principle of galactic warfare doctrine. They used terrain. The human vessels, designed by engineers led by Venn herself, were equipped with stealth capabilities that should have been impossible given humanity's technological limitations. But humans had achieved the impossible through something the Council had never adequately factored into their calculations: lateral thinking. Human designers did not follow established design principles because they were not constrained by the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 elder civilizations. They simply asked, "What if we did it differently?" The answer was devastatingly effectively. As the Aurelian fleet entered Earth's outer solar system, they encountered the first wave, not a desperate defensive maneuver, but a coordinated strike of precisely 387 human fighter vessels, each one equipped with weapons that human scientists had reverse-engineered from salvaged alien technology and then improved upon through sheer desperation and ingenuity. The fighters moved with patterns that Aurelian tactical computers found chaotic, unpredictable, disorganized. The tactical computers were analyzing human behavior through a lens of formal military organization. They failed to account for the fact that human pilots were trained not as precision instruments, but as adaptive problem solvers. Each pilot made micro-decisions based on environmental factors. Each pilot was not merely following orders, but anticipating them, predicting them, sometimes deliberately defying them when the situation demanded improvisation. Admiral Torrex watched his targeting systems lock onto the human vessels. His confidence remained unshaken. He issued the order to engage. The first phase of the assault began with what should have been a total annihilation event. Instead, it became a massacre, but not the kind Torrex had anticipated. The human fighters, moving through Earth's asteroid fields with reckless abandon that violated 17 different safety regulations in Aurelian doctrine, used the environment as allies. They threaded through dense asteroid clusters where the larger Aurelian capital ships could not follow. They used gravity wells for acceleration boosts. They coordinated attacks from multiple vectors that made defensive response matrices essentially useless. The first Aurelian warship exploded 90 seconds into engagement. Then another. Then 5, simultaneously. The Aurelian forces had committed what humans called a tactical blunder. They had entered the engagement without adequate reconnaissance. They had assumed that superior numbers and superior technology would overcome inferior forces. What they failed to account for was that humans, facing extinction, had abandoned every conservative principle and adopted a strategy based entirely on aggression and innovation. Venn watched the engagement from her personal command console. Tears streamed down her biological face, but her voice remained steady as she addressed her troops through every communication channel on the planet. "This is the day we prove that intelligence, determination, and the will to survive can overcome any obstacle. This is the day the galaxy learns that humanity does not negotiate when our existence is threatened. This is the day we show them why you do not extinguish a species that has learned to burn." Her speech echoed through Earth's command centers. It was transmitted through human communication networks. It was broadcast outward through radio frequencies and laser arrays. And somehow, impossibly, it reached the Aurelian fleet, not through translation algorithms, but through something far more powerful: through context. The Council was watching. All of them. The Zephelians, the Azinthians, the lesser civilizations in the galactic network. They were all witnessing something unprecedented. A species, barely capable of interstellar travel, was not surrendering. They were not fleeing. They were not negotiating for favorable terms of surrender. They were attacking with calculated viciousness, while simultaneously producing propaganda designed to inspire their own forces and demoralize their enemies. It was working. By the second hour of engagement, the Aurellian fleet had lost 137 capital ships. The human fighter losses were approximately 40%, which sounds dramatic until you consider that humans were replacing their losses faster than the Aurelians could destroy them. Human manufacturing continued operating at full capacity. Human pilots, injured but still capable, flew replacement vessels into combat. Human morale, instead of fragmenting under pressure, actually increased with each passing minute. Admiral Torrex made a decision that would have profound consequences. He ordered a full planetary bombardment. If he could not defeat the human fleet, he would annihilate the planetary population. The calculations were simple. Eliminate the civilian infrastructure, destroy the command centers, eliminate the manufacturing capacity, and the remaining human forces would capitulate. It was a sound strategy, except for one critical problem. Humanity had anticipated it. Every major population center on Earth had been evacuated. Civilians sheltered in underground bunkers, constructed with materials specifically designed to withstand stellar-level bombardment. The manufacturing facilities had been dispersed, hidden, relocated to multiple locations across the planet. The redundancy was absolute. Even if the Aurelians destroyed 95% of Earth's surface, the remaining 5% contained sufficient infrastructure and personnel to continue the war indefinitely. But Garrett Fross had prepared something even more devastating for this particular scenario. When the first orbital bombardment strike began, Garrett initiated Operation Retaliation Echo. Every ground-based weapon platform on Earth's surface suddenly activated simultaneously. Thousands upon thousands of anti-orbital missiles, kinetic strike weapons, energy-based cannons, and technologies that even the Council was not entirely certain humanity possessed, all converging on a single target, the Aurelian command vessel Admiral Torrex's flagship. The Admiral's tactical officers registered the incoming strikes with increasing alarm. There was no time to maneuver. There was no time to raise shields sufficiently. There was barely time to process what was happening before the ship's defensive systems became completely overwhelmed. Admiral Torrex's final thoughts, before his consciousness dissipated into radiation and expanding plasma, were remarkably similar to those of his predecessor Shreth. How had they miscalculated so profoundly? How had they failed to recognize that they were facing not merely another species, but a species that had transformed desperation into strategic advantage? The flagship exploded in a release of energy so massive that it was visible from 3 planets over. The Aurelian command structure, suddenly bereft of leadership, descended into disarray. All subordinate officers began issuing conflicting orders. Some commanded continued engagement. Others ordered retreat. The fleet, previously a unified instrument of warfare, became a fragmented collection of independent vessels. Humanity did not hesitate. The human fleet, coordinated by Garrett's precise tactical direction and supported by Sarah Venn's relentless strategic pressure, launched a counteroffensive so coordinated and so ferocious that it seemed almost choreographed. They struck at Aurelian command nodes. They disabled their communication relays. They eliminated their supply vessels. And most devastatingly, they did all of this while their own wounded pilots continued flying sorties. Their exhausted crews maintained combat readiness, and their determined population continued manufacturing replacement equipment. By the 3rd hour of combat, Admiral Torrex's successor, a younger Aurelian named Koresh, made the decision that would reshape galactic politics forever. He broadcast, in clear Council standard language, an unconditional retreat order. The Aurelian fleet, composed of surviving vessels numbering approximately 460 ships, disengaged from Earth's orbital space and initiated a withdrawal to safe distance. They had lost the engagement. More accurately, they had lost to species they had considered beneath their consideration. The silence that followed was profound. Earth's command centers erupted into celebration. Humans embraced each other. They wept. They laughed. They sang. They understood that they had just accomplished something that galactic history would record forever. But the war was not over. It was only beginning. The Council convened an emergency session. The implications were staggering. If humanity could defeat the Aurellian fleet, what else were they capable of? What other miscalculations had been made? The very foundation of galactic hegemony, based on the assumption that elder civilizations maintained technological and strategic superiority, had been shattered by a species that was not even 20 cycles into achieving interstellar capabilities. Sarah Venn addressed Earth once more, her voice carrying the weight of someone who understood the magnitude of what had just transpired. We have proven today that survival is not determined by how long you have existed. It is determined by how fiercely you refuse to surrender. To every human listening, remember this moment, because this is the day the galaxy learned to fear us. This is the day humanity announced that we are not passengers in this universe. We are participants. We are warriors. We are indomitable. From my observation post, I, Krell, understood that everything had changed. The Vorthian collective would adjust their assessments. The older civilizations would recalibrate their understanding of human potential. And humanity, having tasted victory against overwhelming odds, would never again accept any constraints on their ascendancy. The stars themselves seemed to shudder at the implication. 3 weeks later, the Council issued a formal communication to Earth, with not a demand, not an ultimatum, an invitation to join the galactic governance structure as an equal participant. Humanity, it seemed, had not merely survived, they had transcended, and the galaxy would never be the same.